we're going to bring on our final guest, and her name is Tenita Johnson. And she's an author as well as a book coach. And she encourages people to get their books done. That's another thing that made her laugh, because that's what she posts on Facebook. She'll say something like, you got to snag in your stockings because your book ain't done yet.
That's funny. So, I like that.
I just made that up, but she'll post things like that to encourage people. And in other words, you need to, if you want to do a book, you need to get started. The book is not going to write itself. So
I like your house, Tenita.
Thank you. Prophetically, right?
Yeah, speak it into existence.
Yes, you got to see it before you see
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you were able to make the timing work for your travels, and my condolences for the services that you had to attend. I know it's challenging. You had back-to-back deaths in your family or loved ones. So tell us about your work as a book coach, how you got started doing that and what that entails. And then tell us about your book, your latest book, which
the latest book.
Hush, your latest book, because I don't know how many books do you have?
22.
Oh, okay. I had no idea you had 22. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
22.
I need to catch up. Okay. Okay. So tell us about your work as a book coach and why you started doing that.
Yeah. So thank you, Gwen and Dr. Rhonda, for having me. I was not looking to become a book coach. I was asked to coach authors, and so many people came to me who needed help with getting the words out of their minds onto the pages in a way that the reader could actually understand it and comprehend it. And so the name of my coaching program is called Brand Book Bestseller, because I believe that first people have to have a brand before they try and write a book. You have to know, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to be known for? And then we create the book, and the two gelling together will get you the bestseller status, not just from the book. So a lot of people say, well, am I going to get rich off a $10 book? You're probably not, but because you have that book, now you have speaking engagements, you become a coach, you have a conference, you have a webinar, you might have a stage play, you might have a documentary based on the book. So the opportunities are endless once you have the blueprint for the book. So that's why I'm really passionate about when I teach my authors. I'm like, listen, we're going to get this book done, first of all, in 60 days. And I'm excited to get it done because I've seen what happens on the other side of when the book is done, the doors really do start to open. But until you write the book, then the book becomes the blueprint for everything thereafter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned stage plays. I've turned 2 of my novels into stage plays. And it's an amazing experience to see the story that you created
on stage,
brought to life on stage.
Yeah. So one of my books I wrote in 2014 called When the Smoke Clears, A Phoenix Rises. We turned it into a stage play. We just cut the subtitle. It's just called When the Smoke Clears. We did it in downtown Detroit, sold out audiences in 2017 and 2018. So we'll probably try and do it before the year is out, because I can't believe it's been 4 years since we've done it. But I was able to give it to a playwright to help me create the script easier because I had the book. Now, granted, everything that's in the book can't be reflected in an hour-and-a-half stage play.
So some things have to be cut and tweaked.
But the gist of it was there, and we changed some things for stage and for theater. So I think that's another thing I would encourage authors: don't be so stuck to your book and the reality of way your story is told that you don't switch it for theater or even movies or TV.
Right. And that was the other point that I want to make. A lot of authors want to see their stories on the big screen and they sleep on the stage play.
Yeah.
You will get more people supporting your play. I mean, because a movie is not easy. And you can spend all that money on a movie and try to get it on the Tubi, and only a few people are going to watch it.
That's right.
But if you do a stage play, you can get hundreds of people to watch it at one time.
Yeah.
And you never know, one of those hundreds of people may give you that movie deal.
That's right.
You know,
And
you never
people
know.
love, and people love live entertainment. I mean, I know
Yes.
we were shut down for COVID for a little bit, but now that things are opening back up, there is nothing that can transfer, nothing that, I mean, yes, Zoom is good, Facebook Live is
But
good,
it's
but
not the same.
there is nothing that can compare to being in a room, in a theater with actors live on
Yes.
stage. Yeah.
And they laugh in the right places and
Yeah.
cry in the right places.
Yeah, yeah. And my stage play was one of those where they say you go beyond the veil and they actually interact with the audience. So the audience was part of my show. So that made it even more intriguing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now are all of your books nonfiction, or it's a combination?
Nope. So all of my books are nonfiction. I'm actually working on my first fiction book ever. So 22 nonfiction. First book ever. I'm working on a fiction book called Family Secrets, which is about breaking generational curses around sexual abuse. A lot of the work that I do, a lot of the writing that I do, of course, we're going to talk about the book Hush. As you can tell, is centered around healing from sexual abuse.
Okay, that's a good title.
Mhm.
One word titles are good if they if
they can
zero
stand
in
alone.
on
Yeah.
the topic. And Hush, that's a good title for that topic.
Yeah, yeah, because we've been taught for so long to just hush.
Yeah, and keep
Yeah.
keep it at whatever happens at home. You keep it at home, but not if it's abuse.
Yeah,
No, you
and
don't
see my
keep that.
and see, I have a script for a short film, and it's called "What Happens in This House." But I took off the
Okay.
part "stays in this house." It's just
Okay.
what happens in this house. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
a
And
good title.
it's a play. It's a play on words because we think about the physical house, but the truth of the matter is that our inside is our house, and that is being deteriorated at the same time.
For
It's
sure.
not just the physical house. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's spiritual.
It
And
is.
then that goes on the inside, what
Yeah.
happens to you. And what happens to you as a child, that stays with you forever.
Yes, it doesn't go away. You might learn how to deal with it, but it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. It could be good or bad.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of people choose to either sweep it under the rug, or the mind is very, very intelligent, and so the mind will do things to protect us. So some people's minds, it just locks it away in a safe box somewhere, and they forget that it even happened until they're triggered again and they're ready to deal with it, and it comes back up. It may be 30 or 40 years later, but there was a period of time in my life when I actually forgot that it even happened. Like, I just didn't remember. Yeah.
Some experiences are too painful to keep in the front of your mind. You have to have them deep in your subconscious.
It's in the subconscious. Yeah.
Something will trigger it, like you said, that conjures it back up.
Right.
So what do you do for authors in terms of the book coaching that you do for somebody who's watching? And all of our shows are archived. So we're on all the podcast platforms as well as YouTube channel. So they're viewed by a lot of people. So what do you do for people who want a book coach? And what's your criteria? Because a lot of people think that if you're a book coach or whatever you do, that you take all clients, and not all clients or potential clients are a good fit.
Oh no.
Yep, not everybody. I can tell you that.
They're not always a good fit. So
they're not. So Gwen, I'll tell you my ideal client. Let's just start there. So the name of my coaching program is called Brand Book Bestseller. It's a 60-day accelerator to help people get the one book that's centered around their brand, written in 60 days. My ideal target market is Christian women who are speakers and coaches. They already have a brand, but they don't have a book centered around that brand particularly. So if you're coaching on identity or you're coaching on forgiveness, I'll use forgiveness because I have a coach who came to me. She was already coaching on forgiveness, but she didn't have a book. but she had a 7-step process to easily forgive in, let's say, 60 days. So her book is on forgiveness, and it's her framework for forgiving in 60 days. But she didn't have a book written, so she went through my program, and then we went through the publishing process. So that's what that program is for. If people want me to actually help them write it one-on-one, that's my ghostwriting program. That's not even coaching, that's ghostwriting. That's me interviewing you, and pulling the meat out, and I'm writing it and spitting it back to you, like, here, review this and let me know if you approve it. So totally different price points, and one is done with you while another one is done for you.
Well,
Yeah,
the funny
I've
thing
done some
about
ghostwriting, but it's not for
the
me.
funny
No,
thing
some
about
people it's
ghostwriting
not
is that
for you.
people think that they can just say, okay, this is my idea, have at it.
Yeah, that's why I don't do it anymore.
It's not.
I mean, it's some people are good, and people don't realize how expensive it is.
That's
a lot
right.
of times when you quote a price for what they want, they tell you what they want, and you give them a price, they're like, whoa, yeah, because time is money, and you're a professional, and you need to be paid.
Time is money. And so I tell people, it usually takes me anywhere from 3 to 6 months. I'm working with a client now out of LA, and we know going into the project, it'll probably take us a year. My price point is between 20 to 25K, because you're going to take up a year of my time. And at the end of the day, I get no royalties on the book. You're gonna make a movie.
You're gonna put all this work into that book. You're not gonna get anything for it.
And your name isn't on it because you can't say you wrote it.
Right. They want you to think they wrote it. So
but that's when it is what it is. That's what ghostwriting is. So
that's what ghostwriting is. That
my point. My point is, your price is your price, but I think a lot of people don't realize how much goes.
They don't realize how much work.
They don't think about the research. They don't think about the
interviews.
The interviews. And then you still got to
transcribe it.
Yeah, you still have to get it edited.
You have to organize it into a book. A beginning, a middle, and an end has to be a continual. To keep people turning pages.
Right.
It has to flow.
So the quickest. So the quickest I've done a ghostwriting project, and she was great to work with, 90 days. The longest it's taken me is 3 years. And that's because I was working with a pastor who was traveling all over the world, and we just could not get schedules to coordinate. It was a timing thing. It wasn't even I wasn't writing. It was just getting together to even get the interviews done. So that's another thing people don't take into consideration. But so different price points, but brand book bestseller is for that Christian woman who's a speaker or coach that doesn't have her brand book. So a lot of people want to write their life story, or they write a devotional, but they don't necessarily have a book centered around their specific brand. So it's like, what do people know you in the marketplace for? And do you have a book around that?
Well, I love the fact that you know exactly who your target client is.
Oh, yes. It took some years, but yes.
That's a pain, I'm sure.
It took some years, and it's still transitioning. It is it's still transitioning. Yeah.
A lot of people, and I know everybody says everybody has at least one book in them, but people say, okay, I want to write a book and my life would be interesting. And I just said, look, unless you're a celebrity, nobody cares. And I mean, it's true. And then I had an interesting situation recently, because when people at my church find out, because I don't talk about myself at church, I'm there for other, I'm not, I don't. So when they find out I'm an author, they always tell me, oh, I want to write a book. And then it's always about their life. So, and then they'll tell you, well, I can't tell everything. People are going to be mad at me. My family members. Okay, well, so why would you want to write a book to make everybody mad at you? But it was funny. In 20 minutes, this gentleman was telling me about some different situations in his life. And I said, that's a book right there. That's a book right there. One thing he told me that I'll share, he said in Jamaica, when somebody builds a house, they build it for future generations. They build a little bit with their own hands, and they build a little bit at a time with the whole idea that the house will not be sold. It's there for future generations. I said, that would be an amazing book. People don't know about that.
They don't know.
He was telling me some other stuff. He was in the military and some stuff. I said, that's a book right there. You don't need to write a book about your life and tell all and all that. You can write a book that's substantive, that just covers one thing, like a flashpoint in your life or milestone.
The purpose of building a house for future generations is huge. Yeah, you could unpack that in a whole book.
Needs to be written.
Yeah.
You know, so people, if you're out there and you're saying, I'm going to write a book about my life. No, don't do that. Write a book about a certain thing that happened in your life, or something that will be interesting to people. That's different. That's a book that's not out there. That book
and I tell people,
isn't out there.
Well, and I tell people, we already know there's nothing new under the sun. If you went through it, somebody else somewhere has probably gone through it, but your story is your story. It probably didn't happen exactly like theirs.
Right.
But what I tell people is you need to write about those transformational moments. So if you got a diagnosis from cancer, or you lost a child, you lost a spouse, and like I always tell people, the very first thing when people come to me and say, well, I want to write a book, I'm like, particularly about my life. Okay, great. You want to write a book about your life. Why? And I'm not saying that to discourage people, but you have to know your why. And then ask yourself why 5 times before you get to the real root of the why you really want to write this book. Are you just writing a book to say you wrote a book, or are you writing it for for legacy? Okay, but why? Why do you want to leave a legacy? Like, you got to keep asking yourself why at least 5 times before you get to the root. The other thing I tell people is, who is the book for and what problem does it solve? Because people don't just pay for books because they read a good story. No. People pay for books because it's either transformational or it solves a problem.
Well, and I'd say it's either for entertainment or education or instruction. You know, it's either, you know, fiction is for entertainment, you know, but nonfiction is normally for information. It's to learn something.
But even
within information, like you're saying.
But even in entertainment, there are underlying themes, there are underlying lessons.
Oh yeah.
We're learning something, we're hearing something. Like, if you turn on your spiritual eyes and ears, there's so much in everything that we think, oh, this is just a movie for entertainment. There's always like real life issues in movies and theater.
For sure.
Yeah.
And imagery. You know, there's a spiritual side to films where, and I have a book, you know, I have about 5 books where I have notebooks for each one, where the theme is, in research, as I see things, I put it in the book. And then when I get enough, then I pull the trigger on it. So but I have one about Hollywood that I haven't written yet, but I got a lot of material.
Yeah. And so the other thing I tell people, Gwen, is that's cool if you want to write about a portion of your life, like you said, those transformational moments, or something interesting. But the other thing I tell people is you need to write the one book that makes you an expert. We're all an expert in something. For me, it just happens to be books. So I write a book about being an expert in books. But for other people, it may be baking cakes. It may be sewing. It may be finding your identity in Christ. It may be forgiveness. It may be, you know, finding a husband. I don't know, whatever it is. There are singles coaches. There's a coach out there for any and everything you think you want to do, but they should have a book about it, because that's what makes you the expert. Like, what's your signature process that you can help people get the transformation that they're really looking for?
No, you're absolutely right. And I love that you said that. Write the book that's going to make you an expert. And even if you write a fiction book, you're still an expert at something. Michael Baisden really built his platform on relationships and being happily single. And he wrote fiction books. I think he may have had one nonfiction book, but most of his books were fiction. And
but they have relationships.
And he built his platform on relationships. And so he has speaking engagements on relationships. He had a whole radio show on relationships because of the way he built his platform. So even if you're a fiction writer, you can still be an expert.
And so I think a lot of authors are writing what they think is good and not really clear on who their book is for. So a lot of authors will tell me, well, it's for everybody. It's for
No,
men, it's
right.
for women. And I'm like,
no,
well,
no.
is it for my 8-year-old daughter? If it's for a 50-year-old woman, they're like, well, no. Okay, well then it's not for everybody. Let's bring it down. Let's chisel it down and see who we really are serving. And I think it's the mindset of lack that we think, well, if I make it for everybody, then everybody will buy it. No, if you market to everybody, nobody buys
Nobody
it.
will buy
Nobody
it.
knows.
That's what,
Yeah, nobody
because
knows.
it's not for
Like,
them.
who are you talking to?
You know what? What's another funny thing? I noticed this when I first became an author, is that we often say that the book is for everybody, but then we would go on book signings or book festivals, and when readers walked past who didn't look like us, we wouldn't try to sell to them.
Exactly.
But if a Black woman or even a Black man walk past, we're trying to get them to buy the book.
Right. Well, then you need to say
if a white person walks past, you know, you're not trying to sell them the book.
Right.
You think they're not going to want it. So if
well, then,
the book is for everybody, then you should be selling to them too.
Or you need to say this book is for
Right.
African American women, and don't be afraid to say that.
Exactly.
Because it's a different demographic. We talk different, our mannerisms are different, and
I
you know,
think
if
it's
a-
different.
I will never forget the time I was selling my books in Barnes and Noble, and an old white man wearing a t-shirt, and his wife came through and he said, "Are you from New Orleans?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, we need to support you. I want a book."
wow.
So you think I wasn't going to sell to him because he didn't look like my target audience?
And guess what? He probably read it. And so I tell people that doesn't mean that people outside of your target market won't buy it, but you need to have a target market so that when you are marketing, when you're setting up vendor tables, you need to know if your target market is even in the room. Like we have books on marriage. I'm not necessarily going to a singles conference because it's about becoming stronger single. My books are on marriage, uncut. So yeah, no.
Oh,
So
girl,
tell
I
us
like
about,
you.
we only have a few minutes left. So tell us about her.
All right, so
their latest book, which came out a year ago, roughly. Is that right?
yeah, so Hush 2 came out in the fall of last year. And so Hush 1 and 2 actually came out. So Hush 1 is all women. It's 8 different women sharing their story of overcoming either molestation as a child or rape as a teenager or an adult. Book 2, I was fortunate enough to get 4 Black women and 3 Black males to come forward and talk about sexual abuse, which is unheard of.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's life-changing. And the assumption is that those 3 Black males are gay. They're not. 2 of them are married. They live a regular lifestyle. One of them is a gay male. But again, it's one of those things where it's like we don't talk about it and we make so many assumptions that people are the way they are for whatever reason. And so I really wanted to do this project, and I have a promo video I can send you all as well, just for the Hush series, because we're not done. Hush 3, Lord willing, will be all men. So I am looking for 10 good men who are, I don't care about the race. I just need 10 men who are willing to speak out about being either molested or raped as an adult.
That is a serious subject, because you're right. Men don't want to talk about it because they're either afraid that people are going to make fun of them and say, "Oh, you weren't raped, you know, you enjoyed it," or they'll say, or they think people will say, "Well, you must be gay if you were raped."
Right. If you didn't like it.
Did you see the video that came across Instagram? I think I saw it a couple days ago, but it was a young man who told his story, and for years he thought that he was gay because he was raped by a male cousin for years when he was younger. And then he, you know, as he started to live his life, he realized that he wasn't gay. He's married to a woman, he has children, and he's happy. But for a while, that's what he thought of himself. And he said, don't let past trauma try to determine who you are. And it was a very powerful
try to define
video.
your future. Yeah. And so
well, if you are raped, you are violated. That doesn't define you. That's like a woman being raped and somebody says, well, she was loose or promiscuous.
Or she was fast, or
No,
she was
no,
hot.
I
And she was,
mean,
yeah. Mhm.
no, she was violated. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I actually have two. I may have more than two. I have some people I can refer you to.
Oh,
And
good.
the interesting
Awesome.
thing is, one is about 70 years old.
Wow.
And the other one, I'm gonna say he's more like 35. So
Okay. Okay.
you'll get, some differences in
Yeah, ladies,
generation.
listen, ladies, I'm taking a bold step of faith. I'm Googling men who have came forward, all the football players, the coaches, and all the alligators. Like, I'm Googling all of that and just reaching out to the people. All they can say is yes or
Okay.
no. Do they want to share their story?
Well, I'm
No,
gonna
that's a bold, it's a
email
bold
you.
step, but it's a step that people need to hear. I think that there are a lot of men who may want to tell their stories, but they don't know who they can trust. They don't know
Yeah.
who wants to hear that story.
Right,
Mhm.
So
right.
when
And,
you-
and I'm not doing it ill will to expose.
Right.
exactly, exactly.
I'm doing
Right.
it to help unlock another generation of men who probably need to come forward that never will if they don't see men that look
Right.
like
Now, Mary Evans asked if the men's stories are going to be anonymous in the book.
that'll totally be up to them. That'll be up to them. My preference, let me say this, my preference when people come into Hush is that they come in totally free, that they are not using pseudonyms, because we will do a book launch party. We will do a Zoom. So you got to be able to talk about it. It's not just about getting the story in the book and then tucking it under a rug. So you got
Okay.
to
Yeah, you have to be willing to
go
be public with
Yeah.
promoting the
unapologetic
Right.
about your story. You
Okay.
got to be, yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
if-
we're at the
so I tell
end of our time.
Oh,
So I
I'm sorry.
wanted to make sure that you get your contact information, how they can buy your books
Oh yeah, absolutely.
before we
So
go.
yeah, so on social media, if you look up Tenita bestseller, you'll find me on most all social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. My personal website for booking and my actual books is tenitajohnson.com, tenitajohnson.com. The company website, the name of my company is So It Is Written. So the website is soitiswritten.net. And if you'd like to email me about any books or questions or speaking engagements or anything like that, info@soitiswritten.net. info@soitiswritten.net.
Okay, well, we put your websites in the chat. I'm sure that there are going to be some people reaching out to you. Thank you so much for dropping so many gems. This is a great way to end the show. So I'm really glad you were able to get on and join us tonight.
Yes, thank you, ladies, so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.